on to the next session, right, which is the invited presentation. So the session chair will be Mr. Gabriel Low, Team Leader, Digital Strategy and Automation at the Institute of Chemical and Engineering Sciences, Agency for Science, Technology and Research. So I'll hand the time over to Gabriel.
Hi, good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, great, thank you. So thanks, Profi, for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here today. Again, my name is Gabriel from ICES A-Staff, and I'll be your chair for session 3 of the program today. So in this session, we will discuss and share the challenges and opportunities in accelerating low carbon energy transition from different perspectives. So as Singapore embarks on an energy transition journey, it presents both a significant opportunity as well as an enormous challenge. It is imperative for our research performers to appreciate the opportunity in low carbon and clean energy technologies, which can then further stimulate an emerging market, while simultaneously understand the challenges in transforming an economy which has been largely reliant on fossil-based energy. Today, we are very fortunate to have 4 distinguished speakers from both public agency and the industry to share their diverse perspectives and views on this topic. So I would like to remind everyone to post your question in the Q&A box during the presentation. For the first presentation of this session, we are pleased to welcome Ms. Adeline Au from Singapore Economic Development Board, EDB, to share her perspectives on this topic. Ms. Au is currently the Vice President of the Environmental Sustainability Group in EDB, and she had held various positions across energy, chemicals, materials, strategic planning, and economy in the public sector. And today, she will be sharing with us her expert opinions through the lens of a public agency in a presentation titled Advancing the Transition to a Low Carbon Economy. Ms. Adeline Au, please.
Thanks, Gabriel. Yeah, let me just try to share my content first. Yes. Wonderful. Yeah, so thanks very much for the opportunity to participate in this workshop. I'm Adeline from the Singapore Economic Development Board, or the EDB. And maybe just by way of introduction, we are the primary government agency in Singapore that's responsible for industry development and investment promotion. And my team and I, we work with global companies to grow their green activities from Singapore and decarbonize their local industrial operations. We also work with other stakeholders to develop the industry ecosystem here for carbon management and sustainability. And in addition, we are responsible as well for the development of the energy and chemicals industry in Singapore. So really quite a number of areas of work that we're involved in. So yeah, today I thought maybe it would be helpful for me to share maybe a quick overview from our perspective of some of the global industry trends and the outlook for energy and chemicals and what it means for how Singapore is responding. I think, everyone is aware that, there's been increasing consensus about the impacts of climate change and also growing impetus from governments, consumers, and I think one thing that's different this time around is, I think, how increasingly mainstream the concerns around climate change are becoming, and how also the investor community is getting involved. So we do see that there is greater impetus for energy and carbon intensive businesses to take action towards a more sustainable future. And commensurately, I think in view of, the climate change challenge at the global level, countries are also diversifying their energy mix away from fossil fuels. Some of the resource-rich countries in the Middle East and Eurasia are still expected to continue relying heavily on fossil fuels. And while, others like Europe and China are front runners in pursuing non-fossil fuel energy sources. But even for these countries, a sizable proportion of their energy mix is still, going to be comprised of fossil fuels, at least in the medium term. So it shows that, in at least for the foreseeable, in the next few decades, it will still continue to play an important part, even as we navigate the energy transition. So at the global level, the demand for carbon-intensive fossil fuels is expected to peak, and I'm sure everyone has seen the projections. Every year we talk about peak oil, and I think this chart was from 2019, but the latest chart from McKinsey, I think, shows coal and oil demand projected to peak even earlier than this one. In 2029 for oil. But even while I think the global long-term outlook for fuels is less optimistic, Asian demand is still expected to grow steadily as the effects of rising urbanization will continue to outweigh, I think, other mitigating factors. And at the same time, even as renewables grows as a share of the global fuel mix, we also do expect a broad transition to renewables really only in the 30 to 40 year time frame or beyond. So cleaner fossils like gas are still expected to play a major role, especially in developing Asia. On the chemical side of things, I think as the world grows, the demand for chemicals, which are used in a wide array of day-to-day products from diapers to detergents and pharmaceuticals, will continue to grow. And in fact, I think there are projections to show that plastics demand is expected to outpace many of the economic as well as demographic indicators. So, in response to these trends, globally, I think oil companies and energy companies are responding by making shifts in their business strategy. So in the existing business, we see many companies shifting and considering the shift to higher value oil products by upgrading their refineries in terms of complexity and also increasing petrochemical yield to play in the high value chemical space. At the same time, there's also been a growing interest to decarbonize operations given the increasingly binding global carbon constraints. And in Singapore, the sector here is also transforming. So companies like ExxonMobil as well as Shell have recently announced global efforts to restructure their businesses and explore new low carbon business lines, including here in Singapore. They're not the only ones. Others like Chevron, for example, have also recently announced plans at the global level to establish a new energies business, for example, and a number of the chemicals companies as well at the global level. And I think a lot of this is also translating into increasing interest in what companies can do in Singapore. I think the other aspect of sustainability is also that there's going to be growing demand for sustainable products, which will in turn drive new demand for different types of specialty chemicals within the industry in areas like nutrition, agriculture, smart materials, and mobility. All these areas, when we think about green vehicles and consumer products, all these require the use of chemicals that can help to sustain the high performance of the products, even as they are more sustainable in their fuel use and so on. So there are these new emerging areas that are being actively invested in by top companies around the world. Beyond the demand for specialty chemicals within the group of sustainable chemicals, there's also, I think, increasing interest because companies in the industry are also increasingly focusing on sustainability within their processes and operations. So this will drive the greater use of sustainable feedstocks, as well as sustainable chemicals and production processes within the industry as well. For example, industrial biotechnology being a growing area of interest to help to reduce resource consumption and also drive greater sustainability. So I think while these are new and exciting trends for the industry, today there is a cost premium to be sustainable. So at the global level and in Singapore, we will need further research and development to make these sustainable options more technologically and economically viable. So that with affordability, I think many of these solutions can scale. So, I mean, in summary, I think there's a lot of exciting developments that are happening at the global level in terms of energy transition. And I think in Singapore, we are hoping to be play a key part, in that global energy transition as well. So Singapore, we continue to contribute to the global efforts. We've put forth aggressive domestic targets, which I'm sure previous panelists would also have shared about. And under our latest NDCs, we've aspired to halve emissions, by 2050 to 33 megatons of CO2 equivalent, and achieving net zero emissions as soon as viable in the second half of the century. And the commitments that we are making to achieving these goals is evident in, I think, the Green Plan, which we launched this year. We see it really as a national movement to tackle the sustainability agenda, as a way for Singapore to commit to concrete targets over the next 10 years and beyond, and also as a call to action to various sectors to take action. Because I think in the previous discussion, there was a thread around, I think, the need for new ways of collaboration and to really address these challenges, and we see that's really important in Singapore. So under the energy reset portion, we'll have to pillar of the Green Plan, we'll have to think about how to use cleaner energy and also increase energy efficiency, including in industrial operations. In the green economy pillar, we will also seek to view sustainability from the point of view of how we can create new and exciting areas of jobs and growth for Singapore, and anchor new investments that can improve our carbon and energy efficiency. We also hope to work with industry partners to transform Jurong Island into a sustainable energy and chemicals park globally. To achieve some of these goals and targets, so the EDB is working with companies to improve the energy efficiency of existing plants and to ensure that new plants are best in class. We have put in place targeted incentives such as the Resource Efficiency Grant for energy to help our companies and industries improve their energy efficiency and reduce emissions. And I think just last year or this year, we actually expanded the qualifying costs for the grant, and we are also exploring the possibility of including other pathways as part of this incentive scheme. And we will continue to also press on in efforts for capability development and awareness building, as well as promoting the deployment of energy efficiency technologies. At the same time, we are also making progress in emerging low carbon technologies. So earlier this year, in June, we completed and also published released various studies on the decarbonization potential of CCUS and low carbon hydrogen for Singapore's context. I think a key finding across the studies was the need for further really trying to accelerate our efforts in emerging low carbon technologies like CCUS and hydrogen. So earlier this year, we completed various studies on the decarbonization potential of CCUS and low carbon hydrogen for Singapore's context. And one of the key findings was the need for further technology development to bring down the costs and also other barriers to deployment, particularly for Singapore. So we've been supporting this by developing new initiatives to encourage the growth of the ecosystem. The first phase of the low carbon energy research initiative with the 49 million fund. I think we're in the process of the grant award, and there should be some announcements coming up shortly in the next few weeks or so. And at the same time, we've also been supporting industry collaborations as well across the supply chain, and different government agencies have been working to facilitate some of these efforts. Beyond that, we are also supporting companies to grow their portfolio of sustainable products. So this includes the production of bio-based fuels, chemicals, and materials, and also the use of recycled feedstocks and plastics recycling in Singapore. Yeah. So maybe just to quickly end, I think we see the E&C industry in Singapore and the research ecosystem as a key partner for energy transition here. The industry, I think, brings a lot of valuable commercial experience, technical and operational expertise, also I think the know-how to help realize low carbon value chains that are needed in future. And this is really an important ingredient if we are to develop a strong ecosystem for development and deployment of such technologies from Singapore. So yeah, I'm very pleased to be part of the workshop today, and it's a great example of the type of interactions and collaborations that we will need, to help to make a difference going forward. So I think on EDB's part, we'll continue to partner with like-minded companies in driving investments and innovation in the green energy transition. Together with the efforts of the research ecosystem, I think we'll be collectively able to pursue new green growth for the industry in a competitive and a sustainable manner, and support, I think, the overall transition to a low carbon economy. So thanks very much. I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Adeline, for the insightful perspective from a national strategy point of view. We are now open for questions, so I'm just going to look at the Q&A box. Okay, I think there's a few questions. So the first question: a successful transition would require close coordination between policy, technology, and capital. And at the core, which is partnership between public and private sector, as well as opportunity to partner different countries around the world. In this context, what are the public agencies in Singapore doing to enable this coordination?
Sorry, just trying to figure out whether I was muted or not. Yeah, thanks for the question. It's a great one. I think it requires efforts by all stakeholders, and on the government's part, I think we are doing more to look at how we can collaborate and learn from the experience of other countries in this decarbonization journey. So you would be aware of the MOUs, for example, that we have signed with countries like Australia, as well as Chile, and so on, in the area of hydrogen, as well as CCUS, to share experiences at the governmental level and understand, I think, from a regulatory and a policy perspective, how governments around the world can be supportive of the energy transition. I think in terms of partnership with industry, that's also a very big aspect, and that's the reason why I think we are developing new ways as well to encourage and facilitate collaboration across the industry, and also between industry and the research ecosystem through various initiatives like the Low Carbon Energy Research Funding Initiative, and others as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Adeline. I think there's a second question over here. So how can SMEs in Singapore contribute to this national imperative, and how are we enabling them in this low carbon transition journey?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I think, if I'm not wrong, just last week, our sister agency, Enterprise Singapore, I think might have just recently announced the new Enterprise Sustainability Program. And indeed, it's very important for local companies as well, right? To I think be part of the energy transition in Singapore, and be aware of, I think, what the key priorities for sustainability for their business. So to that end, our sister agency ESG, they've launched this Enterprise Sustainability Program, which will help to support companies to build up some of these capabilities internally, to better grapple with the sustainability challenges for their business, and also understand not just, I think, the compliance aspects, right, but also how it can also be turned into a new business opportunity for the relevant companies. So yeah, watch that space.
All right, thank you. And I think we have a third question over here. Does EDB funds industrial decarbonization projects as well?
I think the short answer is yes. We do have targeted incentives to do that. So I spoke just now about the resource efficiency grant for energy, which where I think we look at how we can support companies who are interested to put in place energy efficient technologies and processes to I think reduce overall energy demand in their industrial operations. I think it's also a combination of that, as well as I think our carbon tax policies in Singapore as well that can help to create the necessary incentives. And on that note, I think you would be aware that we are reviewing our existing carbon tax trajectory as well for the post-2023 timeframe. And I think further details will be made known sometime next year.
Okay, thanks, Adeline. I don't think there is any other questions. Let me just check. Nope, I don't think so. Oh, wait, there's one over here. Right, what is the approximate carbon tax?
That is the $1 million question that everybody would like to know. Yeah, I think we are. I can only say that we're reviewing it at this stage, and I think we'll need to consider very carefully different factors, including the state of international developments, as well as the progress of our domestic efforts, the social impact on households and businesses as well, and also general economic competitiveness, as well as I think how the design of the overall system can help us to stimulate greater investments in green activities. So some of these factors are being carefully considered, and we'll announce the outcome sometime next year. Thanks.
Thank you. So I guess there's a question on who to contact, EDB or SGEC. So I think I'll leave that to the admin to reply that. So thank you, Adeline, for a very insightful perspective from a national agency point of view. And we should move on to the next agenda. Thank you, Adeline, for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.